All right, like I said, we're gonna kind of skip 1-3. I think I think it's okay to skip that. I don't have a problem with that. Um, I'm going to talk a little bit about 1-4 because in order to do 1-5, you got to know a little bit about 1-4. All right, so let's do that. Let's talk about section 1-4. This is very brief. I'm not even going to give you any homeworks on this. I could. I got it. I got it in my notes to do that.
Hi, can you send Isaac and Wasu down to guidance?
Yes. All right, let's talk about a word that we're going to be using really the rest of the year. Maybe every single day. Who knows? I don't know if it's every day or not. But it's right here. It's the word what? Angle. So let's talk about what an angle is. Actually, you know what? Before I do angle, I got to talk about something else. I wonder if that was in 1-3. Anyway, that's okay. Before we talk about angle, let's talk about another word, and it's called ray. All right. So what is a ray? Well, let's do this. Let's talk about what a line is. We already know what a line is, don't we? And I've actually mentioned this. I never said the name of it, but I mentioned what a ray is very briefly the other day. I forget which day, maybe yesterday, I don't know. But this is a line. How do I know that's a line? Because, right, 2 arrows. That means it goes to where? To infinity, right? That's the symbol for infinity. Have you seen that before? Okay. So it goes to actually negative infinity. So if this is a number line, all right. So if this is a number line, it would go to negative infinity and what? Positive infinity. Okay. So it doesn't have a start and it doesn't have an end to it. Okay. It's like the Bible in Revelation says. God says, "I'm the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end." All right. But this has no beginning and it's got no end. All right. We have another thing that actually has a beginning, but it doesn't have any end to it. And what do you think we call that? Very good. All right. And usually we put a little dot there to show that's where it begins. Okay. So this is a ray. This thing right here is a ray. It doesn't have arrows on both ends. It just has an arrow on one end. So it does have a starting point. All right. We actually don't call it a starting point. We call it an end point. And that's a really important word. We use that a lot. All right, so that's an end point, and it keeps on going in one direction. All right, so that is a ray. We can label a ray this way. This is a point. So what do you think we put here to label that point? Capital letter. Let's just call it capital A. And if you wanted to name this, you don't just call it ray A. You got to have another point somewhere in here. Let's put a point right there. What do you want to call that one? How about B? That's a good thing to call it. All right, let me get rid of this word endpoint. Let's make some room. So if I wanted to call this something, I would call it ray AB. Now when we did a line, I'll use different letters for this. When we did a line, I could have called this line 2 different things, couldn't I? I could call it what? Give me one version. Line CD. Or I could call it what else? Line DC. It wouldn't matter, okay? But on a ray, it absolutely matters which one goes first. On a line, doesn't matter. On a ray, it matters, okay? So we always start at the end point, all right? Now, a ray doesn't always have to go from left to right. It seems like I always write it like that, but a ray could go diagonally like this. It could go, right? So here's your end point right there. Everybody see that? So it doesn't have to go left to right. I could have one going this way. Put the end point right here, the arrow that way. Doesn't matter which direction it goes. Okay, it's still a ray because it's got a starting point, or we call it an end point, and it keeps on going just in one direction. All right, doesn't matter what direction it goes. It has a starting point and it goes in one direction. So we call this the end point. So A is the end point. This is just any point in here. I could have I could have a dozen points in there. It doesn't make any difference, but I just put one in there right here. So here's the symbol for array. So we always start with the endpoint, and then just put one other point on that ray. Sometimes we know more points than one other point. Sometimes we only know one other point. But how do I do ray? Well, on a line, we put arrows on both ends, didn't we? So what do you think you're going to do here? Just put the arrow on one end, okay? Now, people ask me all the time, like right here, would I do this? Let's say this is A, and this was B. Some people said, oh, you should just draw it like that, the direction that the ray is actually going, but you don't, all right? You always just go from left to right when we write the symbol for array. Does that make any sense? All right, so even though this is going to the left, let's do this again. Put an A and a B right there. So this is still ray what? This one right here. AB, because you always start at the end point. All right, you don't necessarily start at the left. All right, you always start at the end point. So this would still be ray AB, and watch, on the symbol, my ray symbol always goes from left to right, always. Does that make sense? All right, so it doesn't matter which direction my actual ray is going. When I write down the symbol for it, it goes in that direction. Okay? Let's see what else I want to do with that. Oh, okay. What if I put another point in here? Let's put a C in there. So now I got different options of what I can call this ray. I could still call it ray AB, perfectly fine, right? But there's other options now I could call it. Actually, just one other option, but there is another option. I always start with the endpoint, so I have to start with the A, but I could pick any point that it goes through. It doesn't matter. You don't have to pick the one all the way to the right or whatever, okay? You can pick any point, but the endpoint has to be first. This has to be an A. So what else could I call this then? I could call it ray AB, or I could call it what? Ray AC. Okay? I'll put a little or right there. So either one of those would be perfectly fine. Could I call it ray CA? Why not? That's right. The end point is A. It's not C. All right? The first letter always has to be the end point. We got that? It's very important. A lot of people forget, okay? A lot of people, we might not use rays for a while, and then we actually use them, and then people forget, and they call this ray CA. It's not. There might be a question on a quiz, if I remember right. Might be a question on the quiz or test that says something about name this ray. All right? And what would you name it? You only got two choices, ray AB or ray AC. Could I call this ray CB? No, because I'd be missing all this stuff, wouldn't I? All right, if I started at C, all right, I'd be missing all that. So this particular ray, I can only call that. Everybody good with that? I could put other points in here as well. I could put a D right there. Then I could call it ray AC, ray AB, ray AD. All right, either one of those. You don't have to call them all of them, just pick one. Now, if it was me, what do you think you would call it if you had it written like this? I'd probably call it AD. I'd just use the ones at the further ends, but you don't have to. It doesn't matter. You could still call it AC if you wanted to. You could still call it AB if you wanted to. But if it was me, I'd probably say this is ray AD. We good? Why all the ray stuff? That's not even in the title of my lesson. What's up with that? I don't see any rays up here. I see segment and I see angle. Let's talk about, I'll tell you what, we haven't even got to that lesson, to tell you the truth, just yet. Yeah, let's go to the next thing. We'll get to segment in a little bit. This is still basically section 1.4, okay? We haven't got to 1.5 just yet. Let's do this. Watch. What's that thing? That's array. Very good. All right. And then what's that thing I just drew? Well, when I do this. What's that second thing I just drew? That's array. But look at the look what's in common with both of those rays. They're not parallel because they actually intersect each other. If they're parallel, they would never touch each other. Say it. They share the same endpoint. I love how you said that. That's perfect. They share the same endpoint, okay? So when you have two rays that share the same endpoint, now this doesn't keep going this way, does it? Because it stops there. This one doesn't keep going that way because it stops there. When you have two rays that share the same endpoint, what do you think we have formed now? It's in the title of our lesson. An angle. This is an angle, all right? So this right here is an angle. So what is an angle really? It's basically two rays with a common endpoint. That's right, okay? There are two rays with a common endpoint. When I say a common endpoint, it's shared by both of them. Okay, that means common. Everybody okay with that? Let me know if you're behind. All right, so that's an angle. Very good. All right, so let's put some points on there. So we'll go A. We'll do the A, B, and C. I'm a little lazy. Could use other letters, I guess. These are the first one that pop in my head. All right, look at this thing right here. So I got two rays. If I asked you to list the two rays, how would you list them? Ray what? Ray AB and ray what? AC. So those are the two individual rays, but they come together.
Hi, can you send Alicia Season to guidance?
Okay.
Thanks.
Well, you knew you were going, didn't you? Oh, did you? All right. So there we go. So these two things make an angle. So what we need to do now is figure out how to label it, right? We learned how to label lines, learn how to label points, planes, what else? Rays, right? So that's what we're going to do a whole lot of, especially early on in geometry. So we're going to have to learn how to label this angle. And we got a little symbol. We got symbols for all kinds of stuff. Here's the symbol for angle. It just looks like a little angle, all right? And it usually looks just like that, okay? Don't do any weird angles. Just make it kind of look like that right there. So that's the symbol for angle. Now what we do, remember on the ray, the endpoint had to go first. On an angle, the endpoint actually goes in the middle, all right? So we're going to use three. Actually, on this one, let me do this first before we get to that. Whatever the endpoint is that's shared by both of them, since it's the same point, it's the same letter, we could just call this angle A and be done with it. All right, so I just call it angle A. I don't call it angle B, I don't call it angle C. Why do I call it angle A? Because A is the what? It's the endpoint, it's the common endpoint. So that's the one that I'm going to use, that angle right there. There's another way, though, that you could label this if you wanted to use all 3 points. So you would name it angle, where did I say when I kind of cut myself short before, but the endpoint's going to go in the middle if you use all 3, all right? Now, you could name this angle a couple ways. You could name it angle BAC, right, so if A's in the middle, or you could name it, what else? Angle CAB, that's right. So let's write them both down. So it's going to be BAC. If you use 3, the A's got to be where? In the middle, all right? Or you could call it angle what? CAB. So you will, if you're going to use all 3 points, you're not going to start with the A. You're going to start with either the B or the C. We good? A lot of times, too, they will do this. They'll make a little curve right there just to show you that particular angle. So if you have a bunch of different angles, a lot of times they'll put a little curve right there just to show you what angle they're talking about. So we'll see that in a little bit. I think, well, I'll tell you what. I don't have this in my notes, but I think this might be important to do. What if you had another angle, or another ray, I'm sorry, which does make another angle, all right? What if you had this, and let's call this D. So how many angles do I have now? How many? 2. Any other guesses? 3. Do you see 3 angles there? No, I see 3. I see this one, right? I see this one. Where's the third one? Just say it. Well, this whole entire one that I started with, right? That whole angle BAC, right? Don't forget that one. Do you see 3 angles now? Yeah. So these two angles form that real big one right there, okay? We might be getting a little ahead of ourselves because we're going to eventually talk about this later, but I figure since we're talking about angles, we might as well introduce this stuff to you. So let's name these three angles. What about this one right here? Let's name that angle. What would I name that angle right there? BAD, angle BAD. Good. All right, that's this one here. Let's get rid of this. And then, you know what I'm going to ask now, don't you? What do I name that angle right there? Angle DAC, right. Now again, I could have gone I could say BAD, or for this angle right here, I could say what else? DAB, right. So the B and the D could be interchanged, but what has to be in the middle though? The A, because that's the endpoint. Okay? Got another word for you. Everybody ready? Do you see where they come together? That point A, a lot of times, is called the vertex of the angle. It is the endpoint of the rays, but it's the vertex of the angle itself. Okay, that's the word. We're going to use vertex a lot. We're going to talk about that a lot. All right, so vertex, that point right there, just the point itself, is called the vertex of that angle. Check this out. A is the vertex of this angle BAD. A is also the vertex of this angle CAD or DAC. And A is the vertex of the whole big angle, BAC. Would you agree? Yes. So that's pretty important as well. Man, there's so many things to talk about. Let me change colors. What if I put a point right there? We say that that point is in the interior of that angle, all right? So it's in the interior of angle BAD. So I'll just write it down here. Interior. So that point is in the interior of this angle, but it's also in the interior of another angle. What other angle is it in the interior of? So it's in the interior of angle BAD. Everybody see that? Because it's inside that angle right there. What else is it inside? Angle BAC. Very good. Okay? Everybody good with that? There's something else later. We're not going to get into it today, but there's something else later we're going to talk about where it's important to understand that that's in the interior of both of those. All right? Again, we'll talk about that some other time. What if I put a point there? Where is that in the interior of? Angle what? Angle DAC and BAC. So it's in the interior of both of those points would be in the interior of the whole entire angle. What if I put a point out here like this? Is that in the interior of either one of these? No. Or any of the three? No. Where do you think that is? It's the exterior. Very good. Okay, we got interior and we have exterior. Some people would say it's on the outside, and that's fine. It's true. It is on the outside, but a better geometry word would be exterior. Okay, enough of that. Oh, one more thing. I was looking. I have such little amount of stuff written in my notes here, but it turns into be a lot of stuff. We said that that whole big angle was made up of these rays, correct? So we have a name for that. So we call the rays themselves, we call them the sides of the angle. So that would be the sides right there of the angle. And of course this would be a side as well, wouldn't it? Because that's the side of this angle here, and this is the side of this angle here. Here's another way we could describe this. Once you get used to this and you see it all the time, you don't think about how many ways to describe these angles until you start teaching it. But here's another way. See that angle BAD? Sometimes they might not have any letters at all. Sometimes they'll use numbers. All right? Sometimes they'll put just a 1 right there. So if they do, go back to the green. If they do put a 1 there, and let's put a 2 right there, it doesn't mean anything like it's 1 degree or anything like that. It doesn't talk about how big the angle is. It's just another way to name the angle. So instead of calling it angle BAD, which is kind of a pain sometimes, you could just call that what? Angle 1. Very good. And then instead of calling this angle DAC, what could you call it? Angle 2, all right? And sometimes that's really helpful. They use that a lot, okay? They will they will put numbers in the angles. It makes it a lot easier than saying BAD and DAC. It just starts becoming like alphabet soup, okay? After a while, there's so many letters. So sometimes it's easier just calling it angle 1 and angle 2. All right, I think that's enough for that. So let's move on. That was basically section 1-4. Well, I tell you what I'm going to do? I think I might just stop at section 1-4 because there's no way I'm going to finish 1-5 anyway. So, yeah, I think I'll just stop right there. I think that's going to be good. Tell you what, let me do this first. Let me take a look at the book because I've been just looking at my notes. One, 4. Let me see. Give me a second. No, I don't think I'm going to get any homework on 1-4. So, let's see what I want to do. Yeah, I got a little time left. Let's start at 1-5. It doesn't matter. I probably won't give you any homework. How's that? Is that a good trade? Yeah. Let me start on 1-5 and I won't give you any homework? Okay. All right. Or we could stop at 1-4 and I can give you homework over the weekend. Nobody wants that? Okay. All right. See? I give you choices though, don't I? Isn't that nice? Yes. I don't always give you choices. All right. Let's go. Yeah, let's do this. So let's do another word. Coordinates. This is going to be a word that we're going to talk about a lot. Okay, they're going to say, what are the coordinates? You've probably done this. You guys are in geometry. You had Algebra 1 last year, correct? And you probably did a ton of this stuff. Well, you should have. Whether or not you did or not. Oh my gosh. Everybody loves this stuff, right? What? Are you kidding me? Oh, I bet you love this. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3, 4. Remember this? Okay. We're not going to we will eventually get deep into this with the X and the Y. Do you remember this is the X-axis and this is the Y-axis? You should have arrows on the ends of these because these are lines. Okay? We're just going to deal with the X-axis for right now, okay? So don't worry about the Y-axis. I just want to remind you, we will be doing a lot of stuff with this. We're going to be doing the equation of a line. Did you do that last year? Y equals mx plus b? Yeah. Okay, so we'll be doing a lot of that this year. That's super important, all right? We're going to be doing that in here, and then next year you'll take Algebra 2. You'll be doing it in there, and then it just gets crazy after that, okay? Because you've been just dealing with straight lines. Now we're going to deal with curves. We're going to deal with sinusoids, which is like a curve like this. We're going to deal with parabolas. We're going to deal with hyperbolas, all kinds of weird, crazy stuff, all right? So when you look back on this and it's like, oh, y equals mx plus b, and you're like, oh, no, I hated that stuff. Well, that's like basic, easy stuff, right? But we're going to take that and we're going to build on that foundation and do some more, all right? So let's talk about putting some points on here. In fact, let me just do this. I don't even know why I put the Y stuff on there. Let's just do this. All right, and we'll put some points. Let's put a point right here. And let's put one here. And let's put one here. All right. Now, I don't even know where I'm starting, where the 0 is. Let's, it doesn't make any difference. Let's make this right there the 0. So what is that? That's 1, 2, 3. That's -1, -2, -3, and so on. Everybody got that? So the coordinate is where the point is located. All right, remember, points really don't have any width, don't have any height. It's really not the dot itself. The dot just shows you where the point's located. All right, so where is this point located? This first point right here at -3. So if I put A, B, C, if the question says, what is the coordinate of point A, what would you say? All right, so I'm going to put a little colon there. So what is the coordinate of point A? It's -3. What's the coordinate of point B? 0. And what is the coordinate of point C? It's 1. Everybody with me on that? Yeah, pretty easy. All right, so what we're now going to do is we're going to talk about the length of. This is where it gets into the segments, right? The title of this lesson was Segments and Angle Measure. So this is going to deal with the distance, or the segment, I'm sorry. So the length of something. So what if I said, what is the length of AB? Oh, I should have said this. I probably should have done this before I talked about coordinate. We talked about line, we talked about ray. Okay, a line has arrows on both ends. A ray has just an arrow on one end and an end point at one end. This has what? No arrows. What do you think that is? That's an end point. What do you think that is? That's an end point. So it actually has a start and a finish. All right? But they're both called end points. It's not like a start point. Both of them are called end points. So this thing right here, this whole entire thing, it starts here and it stops here. Could we measure something like that? Yes. Could you measure a line? No, because it keeps on going forever. Could you measure a ray? No, because it has a starting point, but it keeps on going forever, and you still wouldn't be able to measure it. Could you measure this thing right here? Yes, you could. This thing is called a line. What do you think? Segment. Very good. It's called a line segment. So the length of AB. So a line segment, the symbol, and it looks a little crooked. I'm going to try to make it horizontal. That's a little bit better. All right. So that's the symbol for a line segment. No arrows, right? It's just a little line with no arrows on it. That's the symbol for line segment. So I want to find the length of line segment AB. You could take a ruler, put it up to it, but it kind of has its own ruler on here, doesn't it? All right. So let's start at A and go to B, and let's count. So how many is that? That's 1, 2, 3. So what is the length of line segment AB? It's just 3. Here's another way to do it. Because what if I started at -572 and I was going to go all the way up to positive 5,201, right? Are you going to do those little count things? Are you going to go from whatever number I said, okay, and count all the way up there? No, that'd be ridiculous, wouldn't it? So we got to figure out a way to do that, to find the length of something. So in order to find the length of something, what do you think we do? You subtract, exactly right. So normally we take the one on the right and we subtract what? The one on the left. All right, so what is that? 0 minus -3. What do you do with a minus minus? It goes to plus. So what is the length? 3, just like we counted. Now watch this. You could count it the other way too. You could go what? -3 minus what? 0. What is -3 minus 0? It's -3. So we get the measurement being +3 going one way, but then we get -3 going the other way. Does that mean that the length is any different? The length is still the same. Go ahead and say it.
Would Penny Marcus please come
As soon as you're
the
done.
office and Guy May Anderson to the office? Thank you.
Always taking kids out of my class. Okay, tell me what you're...
So is it like absolute value where it's like anything that's in
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. That's perfect. It's absolute value. Remember, absolute value means whatever's inside an absolute value, you just take the positive version of it. So the lengths are the same, right? It's just one's got a negative, one's got a positive. How do we fix that? We just put it in absolute value. Absolute value will force this to be a positive number. And the absolute value of +3 is still +3. That didn't change the positive one at all. So that's how we do the distance. So here we go. Do you see how I wrote out the word the length of line segment AB? There's another, it's kind of a symbol, but it's a symbol without a symbol. I'll show you in a second. instead of writing all that out, the length of line segment AB, this is what we can do. Now, everybody watch. Okay, I know it's Friday. I know it's the last few minutes. I know you're ready to go. But let's listen to this, because you're going to see this a lot. And it seems like every year I teach this, I got to go back and say, remember this thing? Here it is. Instead of saying all this, what we can do is just put an AB with no line segment over top of it. This right here means the exact same thing as this. Well, without the minus equals 3 thing. I should have just circled that. All right? So when you see this, what does that automatically mean? It's asking you to find the what? The length of the segment between A and B. All right? So here's what they could do. Tell you what, just let's put another dot on here just to spread it out a little bit. We'll put dots on everything. All right, let's go all the way to 3. So what if I call this X and I call this Y? Okay? And I asked you, here it is, find, now watch very carefully, it looks simple, but you got to understand what that means. What does that mean when there's no symbol over top of it? Find the length of the between the 2 points, okay? So how do I find the length between those 2 points? I just subtract them, that's right. Put it in absolute value, all right? So X and Y, so what's my X? -2. Subtract the Y, what's the Y? 3, and then you do the work. So what's -2 minus 3? It's -5, but it's an absolute value, so what do you put? 5. Now, do you really need to put the absolute value? Not really, as long as you understand that if you come out with a negative number, you just use the positive version of it, all right? Because again, when you measure something, you never measure something and say, oh, that looks like -5 meters, do you? No, you just say it's what? 5 meters, right? Or whatever it is, that you measured, okay? So that's what that means. This is really important, okay? Understand when you have 2 capital letters next to each other, that means find the length of that segment between A and B, or between X and Y. Everybody good with that? It's something people forget all the time, but it's a very easy concept. Would you agree that's a lot better way to write it than having to write that out every single time? Yeah, absolutely. So that's what they did. They tried to streamline a little bit, make it nice for you. Okay? Yeah, I think we are good with that. Can you give me 5 more minutes? All right. Let's talk about this. Here's the first time that you've heard this word, in here anyway. Congruent. We're going to do a lot of things that are congruent, but the first one we're going to do is congruent segments. You guys ever heard that word congruent? Yes. Okay, good. In what context? Where have you heard congruent before? In math? So they have talked about congruency? Okay. All right, so the word congruent is very important. It kind of, listen to me, it kind of means equal to each other. All right? But there's subtle differences. So it doesn't exactly mean equal to each other, but it's pretty close. It kind of does mean that 2 things are equal to each other. What it means is, in this case, that the segments, the lengths of the segments are equal to each other. Okay? It doesn't mean they're the same exact segment. It just means you got a segment over here, you got a segment over here, and the lengths of those 2 segments are the same. If I said the segments were equal to each other, that means they're the same exact segment. All right? Does that make sense? Maybe not. But again, it's subtle. It's a subtle difference. So if I had a line segment right here, I'm going to copy and paste that, and I'm just going to, I'm just going to twist it around. See, I didn't change the length of it. Okay, I kept it the same exact length, and let's put some, and again, for lack of ingenuity, we'll just call this AB, and we'll call this CD. That's what I got in my notes, so I'll just use that. Now, check this out. Another symbol. Believe me, we're going to have a lot more, all right? So we've just started on the symbols. if I wanted to say that they are congruent to each other, I could just write out line segment AB is congruent to line segment CD. But watch, this is super easy. If I put, it's not an arrow this time, if I put a little, we call it a tick mark, like T-I-C-K, I believe. Okay, this is called a tick mark. If I put one here and one there, that automatically tells you that what's true about those two segments. That congruent. What does congruent mean? They mean they have the same, what? Length. All right, they got the same length. Now, they're two different segments. One's going this way, one's going this way, but the lengths of them are exactly the same. How do I know that the lengths are the same? They told me. How did they tell me? By putting that little, whoops, what's that thing? By putting a little tick mark here and a little tick mark there. That indicates that those two segments are congruent to each other. Make sense? Let me show you one more thing and we'll be finished. Oops. All right. So this is a line segment. It's line segment AB. Would you agree? What's this line segment? CD. Now, if I was going to say they're congruent to each other, we don't say equals, but we do put an equal sign down, and watch this. I put a little squiggly thing on top of it. All right? The three of those things combined mean that they are what? Congruent. Okay? That's the first time, at least in here, that you've ever seen congruent. It's definitely not going to be the last. You're going to be seeing that the rest of the year. Really, literally, the rest of the year, you'll be seeing that symbol congruent. Maybe not every single day that we do something, but throughout the whole book, you're going to see that symbol congruent. All right, so what does this mean again? It means the length of AB is the same length as the length of line segment CD. All right, we just show it like that. Are we good? Yeah, I think that's probably I said I was going to stop at 5 till, so I'll stop there. All right, so I'm not going to give you homework. There's some more stuff that we can do on 1-5. I said we were going to do a little bit of math today, but that's at the end of this lesson. So on Monday, we'll probably do a little bit of math. I'll give you the weekend off from homework, and I've only given you one so far, right? So, but anyway, I'll give you the weekend off. Go to the game tonight, cheer on Red Lion, and there we go.